What's up guys, welcome back to Fancy Goldfish Fanatics. Today I'm doing a video which is more of a debate video whether keeping fish in empty glass tanks is a long-term problem for them or whether it doesn't really make any difference. So this is going to be quite an interesting video, so make sure you stay tuned to find out more. Hey Fanatics family, welcome back. As always, check out those links in the description and make sure you checked out the website. You can see I've got the poster behind me. We finally got the poster set up. So the studio is coming together a little bit. Today we're going to be speaking about whether it's humane and if there's any long-term detrimental impacts to keeping our fish in glass boxes with nothing in them, no enrichment, etc. So I'm going to be going into the positives and the negatives. I haven't really got a solid opinion on this. I personally don't think it makes that much difference, but it is always interesting to hear the different facts and the different sides to arguments, because as always, as hobbyists, we need to keep an open mind because there is very many different ways that we can keep our fancy goldfish and our fish in general. So let's get into the video.
One eternity later.
So first of all, lots of us keep our fancy goldfish in bare tanks. No substrate, no decor, no plants, etc. It is the same for a lot of koi hobbyists as well, keeping their fish in large open ponds with no plants or no rocks, etc, etc. And it is pretty much the same for a lot of monster fish keepers as well. Although I do have a sand and gravel mix in this tank, a lot of monster fish keepers don't keep ornaments, sand and rocks, etc in their tanks. Now you may ask, why do us hobbyists and why do a lot of hobbyists keep their fish in completely bare tanks? Now when I first started fish keeping, I absolutely hated bare tanks. I think they looked horrible, they looked clinical, I didn't like it. I really like that natural look of aquarium setups, and I really liked to see the fish in a more natural environment. Now as I've grown throughout the years I've been in the hobby, my views have changed, I'd say, and now I do really favour these open glass boxes with nothing in it. Now it does sound a bit weird saying it like that and putting it out there like that, but I believe when you have a completely empty tank, the attention is really on the fish and you can really enjoy them for what they are and really appreciate the different characteristics they have. Now this isn't applicable for all fish, and I think aquascapes and natural tanks do have their place, and I would love to have this naturally planted with a natural scape like I did have originally, but there are many reasons why I haven't gone down that route now, and I changed my views on having this tank scaped. So firstly, let's go with the koi and the fancy goldfish. So fancy goldfish and koi aren't really a naturally occurring fish in the wild. Koi, yes, carp can be, but especially fancy goldfish like our rantua, oranda, celestials, etc. don't occur naturally in the wild. So they are not used to being in a wild environment, and they don't know any better than just being in a glass box. Now, potentially, if you keep them with a sand or gravel substrate and maybe some plants and wood, they can have some more natural style feeding habits, interaction and behaviour. As we know, goldfish are related to the carp, and they do like to sift through substrate looking for food, and it is a more naturalistic behaviour. So maybe that can enrich their life a little bit. So with some rocks and with some wood, they can have some hiding spots, they can protect themselves from other fish. But with the fancy goldfish, I'm not too sure whether they don't quite have those instincts, and they don't really have that sense of being afraid because they are so into bread, and they are so modified from the natural fish, do they really have the ability to realise what a predator is and to have that notion of being scared and needing to hide from prey like a wild fish would? I'm not too sure. Obviously these fish do have feelings and they don't have the same brain structure as us humans have, so they can't quite interpret things the same as we can, obviously because they are a fish and we are a human, so we do have a lot of differences in our brain, and when we look at the fish we might think that fish is being sad, that fish isn't happy, it needs some more enrichment, but we can't look at it quite in the same way because the goldfish brain does not operate in the same way that we operate with our emotions and the way we feel about things. So that is another thing to consider. Another positive of having a bare tank is it is much easier to keep clean. We can wipe it down easily, we can clean it inside, we can do water changes easily, remove lots of waste more easily, and if things are easier in life, we tend to do them more often because that is just the way of our habits. And if we are keeping that tank cleaner, maybe the goldfish's water quality will be better and the fish will live a better and stronger life. So that is another positive to think about. Although we will have lots of more natural style instincts and behaviours from the fish, with a bare tank, with escape tank, with a bare tank we can keep it cleaner, more clinical. So could that potentially outweigh those positives of escaped and more natural style tank? And that is also the same with koi keeping. A natural pond may have loads of plants, lots of gravel, rocks and stones, but the water quality may diminish slightly compared to a really clinical rectangular pond that can be cleaned much more easily. So that is another thing to think about. And that also applies to the monster fish. I did originally have a large piece of wood, some plants and some stones in here, and you can since see that I removed all of those because it makes it so much easier for me to keep this tank clean, and it makes it far more less of an effort, so I do it more often. So the water quality is better for the fish. Now, am I taking away from the fish? Am I inhibiting them from their natural instincts? Am I stressing them out and providing maybe a shorter lifespan and more years of stress? Well, potentially I am. However, these fish are both captive bred, so they aren't used to being in the wild and having those more wild instincts as they've never seen a wild environment. Although these fish both occur in natural environments, these have been raised in captivity over at least a few generations. So are they really going to know any different? It's like maybe in the future we have flying cars, for example, but now we don't. We don't miss out on that opportunity because we never know that it's going to exist. I know that's quite a simplified term and a way to look at it, but maybe that could be the same for these fish. They aren't used to having the natural substrate or hiding spots or plant life to rummage through. So are they really missing out, and is it causing long-term stress? I don't know, and that is why I'm making this video to share with you guys. When I did have the wood in here, lots of dirt and detritus was collecting around it, loads of algae was growing and the tank was going really green, and although those things weren't detrimental to the fish in question, the dirt that was collecting was, and it was making it harder to clean, so potentially we could have had some water quality issues which would have impacted the fish, and maybe they wouldn't have lived as long. I don't know. There's sort of a weighing scale we've got to see, and I believe lots of hobbyists, when they come into the hobby, be it goldfish keeping, monster fish keeping, or tropical fish for example, they really like to see that more natural style look with some gravel, some plants, some ornaments, etc. And they really like to provide more space and enrichment for their fish. But as they come through the hobby, sometimes they tend to feel like the more minimalistic approach is better. The fish maybe are looked at more, they're respected a bit more, and we can see them for their true beauty. I believe a lot of hobbyists have their tank as a piece of art where the artwork is living inside the tank, and although these are animals, and I'm not saying they're not animals, so please don't have a go at me for saying these are pieces of art, because I'm not saying that. I'm saying a lot of hobbyists view them as pieces of art and they want their tank to be as clear and as clean as possible with all the focus on those fish in question. So I feel like as you go through the hobby, your views do change and they do adapt throughout the hobby and throughout the different fish we keep and the different styles of fish we keep. Some look better under specific lighting, maybe in a bare tank. However, some may look better in a more naturalistic tank with maybe a black water setup, for example. So that's it really for this video. I just wanted to have the little debate, the positives and the negatives of keeping fish in an open glass box with no ornaments, etc. like that, and no substrate, no plants, etc. And I wanted to really see your opinions. Do you think our fish are suffering long term and they're stressing long term when we aren't keeping them in more naturalistic style aquariums? Do you think that is having a problem on our captive bred fish? This is not a video about wild fish coming into an aquarium and having a bare tank, because that will definitely have some implications on their long-term health and their stress levels. But I'm saying for our captive bred fish, our fish that have been modified like the fancy goldfish that can potentially injure themselves and hurt themselves on things within the tank, are we actually causing them any long-term issues by keeping them in these open, empty glass boxes? Or is it not really having much of an impact and we can actually make their quality of life better with the better water quality and the prevention of any damage? So what do you think about this topic? Let me know down below. I thought it was quite an interesting video to talk about. In the next video, we're going to be talking about overstocking your aquarium and stocking your goldfish aquarium, because that is coming up so much on the Facebook group and it really, really needs addressing. And we've also got another small pico tank we're going to be setting up very soon as well. So thank you all for watching. As always, remember to keep those water changes up and happy fish keeping.